Good to be with everyone today, and welcome. Let's get settled in these couple of minutes before we begin. And if you haven't already, of course, invite you to turn off any devices and turn off any windows on your screen you don't need right now, and let yourself settle in for our practice today. Settle into your chair, maybe turn off your phone, etc. And if you'd like, you can check in the chat. Let us know how you're doing today, where you're joining from, share any blessing for yourself that you could use today, or of course, we continue to make our way through day by day, very, very challenging times. And we all could use this time each day to reset and offer ourselves an opportunity to breathe, to reset, to get centered and anchored, clear our minds a little bit, and connect with the source of our lives. So please share in the chat if you'd like where you're joining from today. You could share a blessing for yourself or anything you'd like, blessing for this group. And as we move into the last few minutes before we begin, as always, let's create a Misha Berach, a blessing for healing for all in need of healing. You can put the names in the chat of anyone in your life who's in need of healing. You can whisper their names aloud. You can just visualize them in your mind's eye and be with them. And as we do so, let's send our blessings, send our love, direct our hearts towards them, and pray for refuah shlema, for complete and full healing for all who suffer from illness of any kind, whether body, mind, or spirit. May they be blessed with refuah shlema. And we continue, of course, day by day to pray for the well-being of safety, the well-being of our siblings held in captivity. May they be blessed to know that they're remembered. May they be resilient, and may their hopes be strengthened, and may they be blessed to return home safely soon to their families and their homes. May all those who have been displaced by war also be well, be safe, and be blessed to return home safely and rebuild their lives and live in peace. Again, as people are arriving, please take a moment to introduce yourself if you like, or just use the moment to settle in and join us, connect in the chat if you like. And we'll begin in just a moment. Everyone is invited to take this moment to arrive, and let's begin. Welcome, everyone. Mark Margolius from the Institute for True Spirituality. Welcome to this Thursday edition of our daily sit, which, as you know, meets every Monday through Friday. First time in a while, we've had a full week of practice. It's very good to be together, especially in these fraught times. Thanks for being here. Just a reminder that if you're in a position to sponsor our practice by offering a gift of $150 or more, we welcome you to do so. And we're grateful that we do have a sponsor for today, Joan Fetterman. And Joan offers this dedication for our practice today. She writes, "My son Zeke Fetterman, my grandson Hobby Bernard Fetterman, it's in memory of them who took their own lives, and in gratitude to IJS in general, and to Marita Anderson in particular, whose wisdom and compassion have supported the grieving process, allowing me to feel joy by feeling fully all the complex feelings of losing my son and grandson to suicide. Staying with me so I get we are not alone. We are Jewish." Joan, may Zeke and Hobby's memory always be a blessing, and you feel their presence as a source of light and love in your life, always. Thanks so much for lifting up their spirits and their souls today through our practice, and we're grateful to you for your support. So thank you so much. Friends, just a quick reminder that we have some programs opening up that we hope you'll consider joining us for. One is Awaken, Essential Jewish Mindfulness, 5-week program, which begins in 2 weeks from yesterday. It's called Awaken Essential Jewish Mindfulness. I'll be leading that with Rebecca Schisler and Rabbi Sam Feinsmith. Also a reminder that we'll be offering Wounds into Wisdom, Healing from Ancestral Trauma, which is offered by Rabbi Tirza Firestone, based on her book of the same name. Fabulous offering, and that will be begin also later this November, thanks to Harry Goboa, who's holding our tech space today, for putting the links to those programs in the chat. So please check them out after our sit today. I'm really happy to welcome back as our leader today, Marita Anderson, Chaplain Marita Anderson, joining us from Atlanta, Georgia. Who of course has led us so beautifully, frequently throughout our now more than 4.5 years of the daily sit, which is kind of amazing to consider. But grateful for all of you who have helped create this community of practice. Grateful to amazing teachers like Marita who have made this possible, and really delighted by Joan's dedication today, honoring you as well, Marita. So thanks so much for leading us today.
Thank you so much. I'm deeply touched, Joan. Thank you. I would like to begin our time together with a chant. And this chant is from Psalm 16. The English words are, I am ever mindful of God's presence in my life, always present at my right hand, and I shall never be shaken. You'll notice that the words for God, or the expression for God, is Havaya, which is an expression of life. And at one point in the chant, it also changes to Ahava, which means love. So you can just rest into being. The chant will be shared in the chat. So at some point later, you can listen to it on your own time. I'm sorry if you couldn't hear me. I will bring my computer closer. The chant will be available to you if you want to hear it later on. But at this time, you can just rest into being and allow me to chant these words. Shiviti Havaya Lenegdi Tamid. Shiviti Havaya Lenegdi Tamid. Havaya, 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 Ahava, 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 Havaya, 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 Ahava, Ahava, Ahava. Today's meditation and mindfulness practice that I would like to offer to you is really all about being mindful of some triggers that may present themselves in the culture that we live in. And I want to offer a teaching from my own experience in my own life, in which I would like to offer a moment of self-compassion in case the world as you navigate it offers experiences which may trigger you or your nervous system. So in the Jewish calendar, we're about to enter a new month of Heshvan. You may look at the sky tonight and notice that the moon is just going to be a tiny sliver. We are entering, exiting the month of Tishrei and entering the month of Heshvan tomorrow night. But it is also, we're living on a different calendar. We're living on the calendar of the American culture. And according to this calendar, it is Halloween. And depending on where you live in the country, Halloween is celebrated sometimes with silliness and sometimes with gore. And I just want to acknowledge that that can be really hard on the nervous system if you are in a place where the holiday is celebrated with a lot of gore. For example, when I lived in Los Angeles is really intense during Halloween. People take it to a completely different level of darkness, and the combination of violence and blood and guts on people's front lawns is really intense. So just navigating the city can be deeply triggering for someone who is sensitive. Now, you may not be sensitive, so it's okay. You may be living in a place that's really quiet or where children are just dressing up, or you may be taking a grandchild or a child for trick-or-treating and it's all about candy and dressing up, and it may be just a joyful experience, and that's really wonderful. So you may learn something about someone else's sensitivity today. But I have a feeling that this year, especially because the Jewish community as a whole has experienced so much trauma, and because the Jewish community as a whole has taken in so many images of violence against our community, of war, um, and um, of war against others as well, um, that we're particularly sensitive. And when we practice mindfulness and when we practice meditation, we become deeply attuned to our nervous system. We become deeply, hopefully, right? That's the goal. We become attuned to our own emotional states. And things may come up that may be disturbing and may actually make us a little more sensitive to the experience of the outside world. So I want to be mindful of our time because I want to spend most of our time in the experience of self-compassion meditation, but I'll just share a quick story. I myself am a survivor of suicide in my family. My father committed suicide many years ago. And when I was living in Los Angeles, our neighbor across the street had a particularly disturbing display of Halloween decorations that caused a panic attack for me. And my husband had to go across the street and gently ask the neighbor to change the way in which the decorations were being displayed. And she came across the street and was so full of compassion and apologies and said, never meant any harm. And of course, I ended up sharing with her much more than she ever, than maybe she ever wanted to know. But I think communicating with people, if there is something that is upsetting to you, is really important, in a way that is honest, right? In the way that shares your emet, your truth, and also gives people the chance to share their hesed, their kindness, is really important. It was a moment of self-advocacy for me and a moment of compassion for my neighbor. It doesn't have to be so intense. I mean, I have a friend who's terrified of spiders. And so, she's had some conversations with neighbors around displays of spiders and spider webs. And so I think that as we navigate this time, we could be really communicative with our neighbors about what our experience is. But in any case, when we're not able to communicate our own personal experience, when we're just navigating the world as it is and we're triggered, we actually have tools at our disposal to calm our nervous system, to come back to the home of our body, to come back to a sense of groundedness and a safety of an inner anchor and the safety of our practice. We practice every day in order to have those tools available to us when we feel dysregulated and come so that we can come back to self-regulation a little bit quicker, a little bit more with a little more gentleness. So I offer this practice to you, knowing that um, if you feel particularly sensitive in this moment or in other moments in your life, it's really important to know that we have a variety of safe anchors in our meditation practice. That sometimes the breath, which we often use as an anchor of safety, may not be available, and meaning that it could feel constricted. And so, in those instances, you can use sound as an anchor of safety, listening to the birds. You can use the sensation of all four corners of the soles of your feet on the earth beneath you, feeling stability and a sense of, that the earth is not shaking in this moment, that there's stability and gravity holding you down. You can place your hand on your chest or on your belly. And instead of feeling the breath coming in and out of the body, you can simply feel the chest or the belly rising and falling. So there's lots of options when you are feeling triggered, when you're feeling dysregulated, to coming back to the home of the body, the home of the practice. And there's a beautiful Hasidic teaching that comes from a text in Deuteronomy, a very famous text that you may know because of tzedek, tzedek tirdof. It's justice, justice you shall pursue. And the text says, you shall put judges at the gates of your tribes, at the gates of your communities. And there's a Hasidic text that says, actually, it's not so much judges at the gates of your communities, but it's protection at the gates of your senses. So it's your eyes, your nostrils, your ears, and your mouth. So at this time, if you're feeling particularly dysregulated, or if you're feeling particularly sensitive, being really careful about what comes into the sensory experience, taking a lot of rest. And so here's a self-compassion break. Feeling your feet on the earth beneath you, coming into presence, allowing for the posture to make note to the body that it is time for practice. From crown to sacrum, the very vocabulary we use for our posture points in the direction of dignity, opening the shoulders. You can roll out the neck, finding a point of center. And here you can choose what is your trusted anchor of awareness today. You can take 3 deep breaths and notice where the breath feels at ease. Can you soften the body and allow the breath to move through the body? Soften the belly and soften the heartscape. If the breath feels available, Stay here, allowing for the breath to be your trusted anchor for awareness. And if not, you can use sound, perhaps the sound of birds outside, sound of nature, or simply the humming of cars outside. Whatever your trusted anchor is today, dropping into presence with a posture of kindness and gentleness, with a direction toward self-compassion and friendliness, softening the muscles around the eyes, softening the muscles around the mouth, allowing for the tongue to rest down to its root. And whatever arises in this moment, allowing it to be as it is, everything is welcome. Noticing what is the emet, the truth of this moment. And can you offer it hesed, loving kindness, softness, compassion? And this is what it's like to be human in this human body. Softening, allowing, self-soothing. There's so little time in our culture for silence. Settling into silence for the next few minutes. Each time the mind wanders, it is okay, it is not a problem. Returning back to your chosen anchor of safety, whether it's the soles of your feet, the sounds outside, or the breath as it travels through the body. We'll sit in silence for the next 7 minutes. Ayaka, just notice where you are now and gently come back to your anchor. As you bring your practice to a close, you can take your time. I'd like to read a poem. And as I read this poem, just take your time bringing your awareness back into our shared space and just notice the quality of light around you rather than focusing on any one object. You can roll out your wrists, you can roll out your ankles, you can roll out your neck, bring a little movement to the body. Fear and hope. Inside the human heart, there's fear. There's also hope. The two wrestle constantly, like Jacob and his God. Sometimes one prevails, sometimes the other. The struggle is sometimes silent and other times loud, but it is constant. Fear, hope, fear, hope. flashes of light and shadow twirling inside us all the time. It is so much easier when there is love. When love is in your life, it becomes the context for it all. Love is the measure of a life well lived. It is the beacon of possibility. When you love, the fear is less harsh, hope a bit stronger. By Rabbi Karen Kadar. Thank you for your practice.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Marita, for that beautiful, gentle practice exactly what we need today. Friends, we seal the practice as we do each day. We offer those of you who are in mourning or observing yahrzeit, or if it's your custom to recite the mourner's Kaddish, to join in that. If you're not reciting Kaddish, to please stay present for those who are for a few moments. And thanks to Harry for sharing the words on the screen. If you'd like, you could put the name or names of those you're honoring today in the chat now or after we complete the Kaddish. And if you're joining me, please rise in body or in spirit, and you can unmute at this time. Yitgadal.
Gadal Vietgadash Miraba.
Amen.
Yama Divrachute Stimuflachute Chayachon Yamachon Chayed Fogo Israel Agala Bisman Kari
Shmei
Shmei Rabba Mivara Yama Meamaya Yifara Yishpa Man Vietnam Vietadar Vietala Kol Bechata Bishirata Benechata Amiram Yama Vibrim Shlama Rabba Min Shemaya Maleni Via Kol Yisrael Aseh Shalom Ben Rama Aseh Shalom Via Kol Yisrael Via Kol Yoshvei Tevel Amen.
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 And friends, thank you so much for joining us today. And if you're leaving us now, we hope you'll join us tomorrow to close out our week of practice. Tomorrow is the first of a 2-day Rosh Chodesh for the new month of Cheshvan, and will be led by Sarah Waxman of At the Well, who will introduce the themes of the month of Cheshvan. And we hope you'll join us then. Of course, you're welcome to stay on as always for conversation with our teacher today, Marita Anderson. And please, if you do so, if you'd like to just share in the chat any reflections on Marita's beautiful teaching today, your experience of the practice. If you have a question, I'll try to speak louder. People hearing me okay? Meh. Okay. Please preface questions by writing question all in caps, and I will keep an eye on that. Marita, thank you so much. I really, first of all, thanks for your sharing. Thanks for, the honesty. We want to thank Joan, also, of course, for sponsoring our practice today in memory.
I had no idea that was going to happen. So thank you so much, Joan. That was such a synchronicity of what I was going to talk about today, and her dedication. That happens sometimes,
Yeah. And may Zeke and Javi's memories always be a blessing in this world, as they are right now, through this practice today. So thanks for the honesty, thanks for the vulnerability, and thanks for lifting up, which I think it's interesting. One of the benefits of mindfulness, among many, is that it brings up to full awareness something that may always be sitting there for people that they don't really know how to describe it, or they feel like it's not right to name that, about the gore or spiders or anything that is evocative that people are taking lightly, but for others evoke things that are very powerful. And we can consciously or subconsciously repress those things, right, in order to get along or feel it's not appropriate. So thanks for revealing and bringing to awareness all of that today. I wanted to invite, I'm going to keep an eye on the chat, but I'm interested, I really particularly love, I particularly love that teaching about appointing judges and magistrates at the gates of the senses. And I think that's it's such a really concrete, kind of embodied way of reminding us that we come equipped with the ability uh, to allow in or not allow in that which is, problematic or harmful to us in all of our being, to do that, to really sort of like stand for ourselves in that way. For those of you who get the source sheet, yes, the poem is included in the source sheet, which is really a great source sheet. It has a number of sources about that, including from Rabbi Alan Liu's book. So I just want to invite you to talk a little bit more about that in terms of trauma, about for people who are aware of. I have a follow-up question as I'm thinking about like how does one identify, or really, since you are somebody who's experienced with this, how does one really identify and label that? But before we get to that, how do you think that's helpful in terms in general, into that teaching of appointing judges and magistrates or officials in the gates of our senses?
I think that, the gift of meditation and mindfulness practices in general is self-knowledge. It's getting to know yourself, getting to know your own nervous system without judgment, and with kindness, and then nurturing that which is true in the moment and knowing how to do that. I remember I was on a 10-day silence retreat, and on the day that I was returning, my son was turning 14, and all he wanted to do was go to the movies. And the movie he chose was not, I mean, it was fine, but it was particularly loud and there was some violence. And, I wanted to be with him, but at the same time, I was just so vulnerable after, spending 10 days in silence. And I learned a lesson. I went to the movies with my son because I wanted to be with him and I wanted to be a good mom. But upon walking out of the movie theater, I was destroyed. My nervous system just couldn't handle it. And it's just learning about your boundaries, your capacity to withstand stimulus, and knowing what to take in and what not to take in. I think it's really an important lesson now about, news cycle, how much news to listen to, how much, and I know we all feel really conflicted because we want to be involved in the process, and it gives us a sense that we have some sense of control. But the truth of the matter is that we really have to take care of ourselves. And so many people depend on us, right? So if we fall apart, so many other people will fall apart around us. So it's just self-knowledge, taking care of our most precious windows.
Right. Thank you for that. I always also interested in the kind of the intersection of mindfulness as kind of well-being practice, and mindfulness as a spiritual practice. And you use that Nava Tehillah, Shiviti, Havaya, Lenegdi Tamid, I place Yud He Vav He before me always. So maybe can you say a little bit about what makes that not just a mental, like that could be a mental health tool, and
Yeah.
that saying, how is it a spiritual tool, you think?
Well, for me, so two things. One thing, on a mindfulness level, chanting can be disruptive to discursive thought. So a moment when I feel trapped in discursive thinking, chant can really disrupt that. And that's such a gift, such a wonderful tool. And then ultimately choosing love over fear
Mhm.
is my practice. Like that's my spiritual practice. For me, that aspect of God and love being interchangeable, like a source of love, a source of strength, a source of that I'm not alone, that there is a presence with me, that that there's something holding me. It's almost like a hand on my back, a hand on my chest, that I am being held and supported in my moments of need.
Mhm.
That chant, I can feel it from within.
Mhm.
When I chant, it like warms me up. It's not just an intellectual practice, it's an embodied practice.
Mhm. I love that. And the support. Go ahead.
I recommend Shefa Gold's practice. Rabbi Shefa Gold is incredibly generous. She has this library of chants on her website. She's the most generous when it comes to offering Hebrew chants. And so her resources are available to all for free. And she's very, very generous with
It
her
just
work.
so happens that Rabbi Shefa Gold is here. And Shefa, if you, that was totally unprompted, unscripted. Ben Shefa, if you'd like to put your website and any
Yeah.
resources in the chat, please
Yeah.
do. Lovely to have you here. Of course, Shefa leads the daily set frequently as well.
Yeah.
So I love that you were describing that source of support as coming, could be external, right? Could be the chair, could be whatever stimuli, the audio of and the ambient sound of our environment, etc., and come from within, and yet not be us, to come from something beyond ourselves, but also that is within us. For me, that's I think that's the transcendent element, the idea that goes beyond me. So I want to go back to this is not, we don't have the time, nor is this a space for being clinical about what trauma is.
Mm.
But I think that your general theme today, which at the beginning I said, I thanked you for being honest and vulnerable about raising subjects that are, that people can sometimes feel like it's not okay to say that,
Mm.
suicide, Halloween is scary, it's problematic. I'm thinking about the legacy of epigenetic, carried, intergenerational, ancestral trauma. And I'll put in a little plug for Toots of Firestone's program that's coming up later in November about healing ancestral trauma. It just it all goes together with this sense of being gaslit. That is, a feeling like whatever you're feeling or thinking, actually, you shouldn't be feeling or thinking that. It's not okay to be feeling or thinking that. And so it strikes me that this is really, you're offering today this mindfulness practice to say, yes, you really pay attention to and give credence to what you're thinking and feeling, right?
Mm.
Pay attention to that. And you have the resources to take care of yourself in this moment, right?
Yeah, I've come across that friction a lot because in my house, Halloween is actually a really big deal for my children. I raised raising
Take the
three.
candy out. It's the candy. The candy is the problem.
I have three teenagers, like they love Halloween. Like that's.
Right.
Actually, there was this really sweet moment when my now 18-year-old was 6 years old and he wanted to be a ghost. And this is actually related. This is not an unrelated story.
Okay.
Wanted to be a ghost, and he made his own costume, and he put like he took a pillowcase, like a king size pillow. He was a king size pillowcase ghost, and on the back he made me write, I'm a ghost, but I'm not real, please don't be scared.
Oh.
And at 6 years old he had the sensitivity to
Mhm.
know that um that there is fear involved, right? Like that it's it's not just dressing up, but there is some aspect of it that could be like he was so, I loved it so much. It was so sweet.
Mm.
Not everyone is so sweet, right? Like there are places in this country where people really take it to a whole other level. And I think that we just have to be honest with our own responses. And we do live in a culture where, like, it's like on the one hand, we live in a culture that completely denies death. Right, like we separate ourselves from death, but then we celebrate it in this very gory way.
You might
And
even go further to say it's, you know, we live in a culture that really kind of celebrates fear and scaring, right?
yeah,
Fear of
yeah,
not
like
being enough, fear of not having enough. Everything is built around that, right?
yeah, fear, exactly. And fear is really played up.
Mhm,
Um, I think when it comes to trauma, I think we just have to be honest with ourselves. Like I think if we can be honest with ourselves and compassionate with ourselves and know that
mhm,
this is what it's like to be a human being and that our experiences leave an imprint. And even just like for me, I find myself more, my trauma was many years ago, and over the years it's lessened, but this year
mhm,
I feel much more sensitive
mhm,
because of how much I have taken in, how many images I've taken in post October 7th,
mhm,
and I am feeling a little more sensitive this year. So that's why I felt like maybe this can be a universal conversation, that it's not
mhm,
just a conversation
mhm,
people who've experienced something very specific like I did, but maybe maybe there's like a pulse on something that we're experiencing as a community, and just to be a little extra sensitive and know that your practice actually is making you more sensitive. It's good, right? It's good to be attuned to your own experience. That's a good thing. That means the practice is working.
mhm.
And there are ways in which you can support yourself with self-compassion breaks, with knowing that you have lots of tools in your tool belt for a different way of practicing if something isn't working in the moment.
Yeah. You know, why don't we, I really just appreciate everything about this, Marita. Thank you so much, as always. I thought it would be nice as a kind of nechemta, as a comforting, to end again with a poem, which I think I'll share it on the screen if that's okay. And if you don't mind reading it, and I'll get myself out of the way here.
Yeah, sure.
Here you go. Okay.
Fear and Hope by Rabbi Karen Kadar. Inside the human heart is fear. There's also hope. The two wrestle constantly like Jacob and his God. Sometimes one prevails, sometimes the other. The struggle is sometimes silent and other times loud. But it is constant: fear, hope, fear, hope. Flashes of light and shadow twirling inside us all the time. It is so much easier when there's love. When love is in your life, it becomes the context for it all. Love is the measure of a life well lived. It is the beacon of possibility. When you love, the fear is less harsh, hope a bit stronger.
Well, I'd say that's extremely helpful. Thank you for that. Thank you for Marita for that, and for helping create this container of love today for all of us, to lift up the hope and soften the fear a little bit.
Thank you.
Um, yeah, thank you. And thanks, of course, to Harry for holding our space, to each of you for being here. Please join us tomorrow. Let's head into Shabbat together with Sarah Waxman, everyone. Many blessings. Be well.
Wow. Bye.